Good afternoon and welcome to the Eldercare Advocate here on WIOX Radio. I'm your host, Ann Thayer, a program manager for the Alzheimer's Association of Northeastern New York. Do you know how to develop a plan to age in place in your own home? Do you know where to go for guidance and financial assistance in home modifications? Are you aware of all the different community programs that can help you stay at home? There's no place like home, but be aware of the potential dangers present in the home for seniors living alone and prepare accordingly. Now is the time to develop a plan because there are no quick fixes. Our guest today is Don Wyckoff, the Director of Community Relations and Agricultural Barrier Consultant at Catskill Center for Area Independence. Sorry. Thanks for being with us today, Don.
Happy to be here.
So let's start off. Tell us what does it mean by the term living independently?
Basically, it means controlling and directing your own life, really. We should be able to have that opportunity and that right to do that throughout our entire lives. So being self-sufficient and, making choices for yourself and determining what you're going to do with the rest of your time, like I said earlier, I think we come from a time, not too far ago, where people with disabilities, senior citizens and things like that, we were kind of looking to, quickly place them because we didn't know what to do and we couldn't prepare the homes and, there was all this uncertainty and inaccessibility and all that kind of stuff. And there wasn't really a lot of technology to help. Today that's changed. There's a lot of technology and a lot of services that can help folks. So.
And then there's these independent living centers, right? And there's a bunch of them throughout the
there's
country.
37 actually in New York.
Wow.
Mostly there's counties like for us we're Otsego, Delaware, Schoharie, and parts of Shenango County that we work with. Of those 37 independent living centers, we all kind of share different counties to try to cover all of New York State.
So if there's somebody in New York State that is listening to the show but don't necessarily live within your area, they could contact you and you'd still be able to help them connect to the right?
We could still connect them. They could also go to nysilk.org and check for the list of independent living centers throughout New York State, what counties they serve. There's actually a couple sites that give that information out. So.
And do they offer basically the same types of services, or do they vary?
All independent living centers have the four core services of information and referral, independent living skills, peer counseling, and transition services, like for people getting, from the home to a nursing home or vice versa back into the community. So those are the base core services that we all have. Everybody gets funding, through. It used to be vested, now it's access, right? So the money comes through there, but we still have to apply for grants. So each county has to apply individually for specific grants to help folks. So it's a constant battle, and we're constantly advocating to get more money. Independent living centers over the years have saved the state billions of dollars in forced placement and things like that. And it's amazing to me. They see the numbers. They know, and by they I mean the legislators. They know that we're saving New York State money, yet there's a lot of budget cuts, and our funding has been a level funding thing for almost 11 years now.
Wow.
Everything else has gone up, all the services have gone up. So now more than ever, we really depend on volunteers and people that are willing to help in any way they can through lending things, money, whatever.
Sure.
So we can keep those services coming.
So let's walk through the services that your center provides, okay, one by one, and we'll spend some time later on discussing specifically the home modification program.
Sure, yeah.
So you guys do some benefit advisement?
Benefit advisement, yeah. A lot of the times, people get a disability, it comes bang out of nowhere, and you're left with uncertainty. You don't know what to do. You don't know where to go. Everybody's told you it's frustrating to move forward in that situation. So we kind of take the people, look at their financial situation, and kind of help them plan on how to, apply for certain services, what they may be eligible for. I know we're going to talk about NHTD, TBI waiver services, Medicaid waiver services, home-based community waiver services. So we do that with the benefit of advisement and get them in there to really see on paper and help them kind of guide them through how to prepare themselves and how to start to applying for some of these things. And there's a long wait in a lot of that stuff, applying.
And since you serve those with disabilities, what's the definition? Like, who could access those services?
Well, this is the thing. Anybody with a disability, we help, but we also work with community organizations in setting up, workplace accommodations, making it more accessible in businesses and public locations, public accommodations. For a lot of the stuff that I do is making, businesses accessible, but a lot of times I go into workplaces and make those accessible or provide accommodations so that people with disabilities can go there and work. Unfortunately, a lot of people, once they're confronted with a disability like this and they're not prepared, they assume that there's no way I'm ever going to be able to go back to work, or I'm not going to be able to fulfill, this independent feeling that we all have. I don't want to have to rely on anybody. And the truth is we can do a lot to make a workplace environment accessible to someone so that they can continue on, give them the skills and stuff. Some of the other things that we do is like job training and working through different services like Access VR, getting people to recognize really what kind of passion do you have, what kind of goal do you have.
What's Access VR?
It's basically what VESED was. It was Vocational Education Services for Individuals with Disabilities, and you tried me on the acronym. Yeah. So
it's all right. I was just curious because I didn't know if I was supposed to know what that was, and
Access.
I think if I don't know what it is, I'm hoping maybe somebody else doesn't know either. So.
Oh yeah, I'm pretty sure they don't. But basically, the idea of is to get people back to work or back into an opportunity for education. So skills training, things like that, identifying what within their capabilities could they do in line with something that they have a passion for, and then start to target those trainings and those opportunities so they can really be competitive in the workplace.
So you said before we can call you for referrals to different things. One of them is personal care assistance. And
the way that works is basically through the Medicaid waiver services. We can be chosen as a service coordinator. We do have service coordinators on staff, and once they're, so let's say we went through the NHTD or TBI, nursing home transition and diversion waiver, or traumatic brain injury waiver services. Our service coordinators would help people to just do that, coordinate services for in-home, getting them out, nursing homes and things like that, and getting the home set up so that they have people coming in, helping them to identify where there is, healthcare workers, and that's another huge shortage. And I think every time I'm asked this question, I want to tell people, don't wait. If you wait to plan and depend on something like in-home care workers or things like that, it's so underfunded. It's really hard to keep staff, and it is a constant turnaround. And they'll approve you for services,
but there's nobody providing the services.
There's nobody providing it. So this is a great time to reach out to family and friends and start to figure out, in the event something happens, a lot of these people can be trained through a lot of these care agencies and get the ability to work and be paid to take care of them. But identifying those people now would be a really smart move.
Right. I'm on lots of long-term care councils and all these committees, and this workforce shortage is huge. Being able to find in-home care workers is sometimes near impossible through a licensed agency, especially.
It really is. And then, if there's not somebody through a licensed agency, then you're looking at Craigslist postings of people that say, and then you really got to be, worried and concerned. You really got to be paying attention to who you bring into your home. Because
if they're not working through an agency, chances are maybe they weren't, sometimes it's because they weren't able to pass a background check or something else, because I know that that's one of the things that happens with the licensed agencies.
And another danger is, people that say they'll just say, well, I'm willing to take care of people, so I'm going to put down that I'm a home health aide. And somebody that's desperate will call that number and bring that person in. But what if they're not trained in how to lift properly or how to do proper food preparation, for people that need blended diets or specific things? There's so much training that goes on in those agencies that to grab somebody just off the streets and kind of hope for the best is really not a good idea. So
exactly.
Future planning,
Definitely. I like to plan for the worst and hope for the best. I like to have my plan A, which is the ideal plan, and then have a couple in the toolbox just in case.
Yeah.
That I can pull out. So then you guys do some adaptive equipment.
Yeah,
you guys have some of that. You connect people and help them figure that out.
The greatest thing, one of my favorite things to do is to be the conduit to connect people with resources and opportunities to become independent. That's such a rush for us. And I didn't mention this before, but independent living centers are also made up of at least 50% of the people on the board of directors for independent living centers have disabilities of their own, and that keeps it so that it's kind of a consumer directed service, so that we know, and also a lot of us that work in the centers have our own disabilities that we deal with, and when it gets to peer counseling, that's where we go, well, I have ADHD, I'll work with him and show him how to do this, and she's had a stroke, so she's going to bring in, so we've got a lot of different folks and different backgrounds that help in the peer counseling way. I honestly forgot the question right there.
We were discussing adaptive equipment.
Right. Okay, back to it. ADHD, how are you?
It's okay.
Yeah, so, the adaptive tech stuff. There's so much now. I wanted to share a quick story about a guy. His name, and I know he won't be mad, he's so proud of his accomplishment, Avi Baruch, came into our office a few years back, and at the time he was 50 years old. He had no ability to read, and he didn't know why. Turns out, after we worked with him for a while, now I also want to remind you, this is a guy who spent 50 years believing that he was stupid and that he couldn't read and that he was just not, so he did, hard manual labor, things like that. He got caught up in drugs and all kinds of bad things, and it was because it wasn't identified that he was dyslexic. So he got with an Access VR counselor and started working with some of our service coordinators, and he came in and actually did an internship with us and decided that this was the field that he wanted to be in. The barrier for him was that he wasn't able to read. And once it was determined that that's what it was, he would say that, if I get stressed or for a test or something, I look at the piece of paper and it turns into black paper or black pepper on white paper. It just scrambles and he can't see it. He just can't comprehend. So we started looking to adaptive technologies, and there's something out there called a smart pen. And Access VR actually paid for the smart pen for him to learn and go to school. What this pen does basically is it has a little camera at the end of the thing that basically you roll that over the words, and it will read out what is being said there, so that he was able to do that. It had another great feature, which is and it comes with a special tablet. When you put the tablet down, let's say for me this was horrible and this would have really helped me in school, but my attention gets taken away from me quite easily. So this pen basically, while you're taking notes, as soon as you touch your pen to the paper, it activates a recording, so that it records what you're saying or what the person's saying while you're writing. So if you wanted to find out what that person was saying while you were writing that important note and you didn't want to miss that, you just touch that where you were, and it'll read off what was being said while you were writing. So this is amazing.
Wow.
Avi now has a master's in rehab counseling, and he's now at the Buffalo Center, the Buffalo Independent Living Center.
Wow, that's amazing.
A master's degree. He went from 50 years old having nothing to 65 years old with a master's. That's amazing.
That is amazing.
And that's technology doing that kind of things. And like I said before, we didn't have that, so we didn't really think to rely on it. But let's just take some of the basic stuff that most of us have. We have, computers and smartphones and things like that. The iPad. We were just talking about the Siri application. Most smartphones have a very similar application. If you've had a Droid phone or something like that, they have a very similar, you just say the name, hey, Galaxy or whatever, and it comes up and you ask it a question and it tells you the answer. So how do we have applications, or what applications on there that really will help seniors or people that are, trying to, for instance, forgetting medicine? That's a biggie. And a lot of people trying to live on their own, sometimes cognitive issues come up, memory issues come up, or dealing with Alzheimer's. This is an excellent application because you can literally just say, Siri, medicines at 5 o'clock. And she'll say, okay, Don. And I know because I do it all the time. If it's plugged in, you can ask it anything. If it's, again, with people with visual disabilities, this thing is like so awesome. You can, what is the weather outside? What's the temperature? All those kind of things. You wouldn't think that's a big deal, but when you have to prepare to go go outside and you have a visual disability, that could be huge.
Right.
You know?
So if we have a disability and we're interested in knowing what equipment would be available to assist us, we could just give you a call and you'd
Absolutely,
be able to help
yeah.
connect us
yeah,
to that.
There's a lot of places out there that have... go ahead.
I was just going to say, could you give your number out?
Oh, yeah. Our phone number at the Catskill Center is 607-432-8000.
Please slow down.
Yeah.
Let's say it again.
607-432-8000. And we can also be found on the web, www.ccfi.us, as well as on Facebook.
Okay, and we'll give that contact information again. So if you missed it this time, go run and grab that pen and paper, and we'll be giving that out throughout the show.
Yeah.
And I know that I've used the center often trying to connect families that are looking for medical equipment and things. You guys have a loan closet, correct?
Yeah, that's where I got lost last time, to be in the conduit. Yes, we do have a fairly large lending closet full of wheelchairs, walkers, canes, crutches, bath chairs, bath benches. If you can think it, I pretty much have it, or I can get it.
Right, and I've known times where there at the center, you've been able to connect me to somebody who has a hospital bed for families. And I think once there was like one of those triangles that the person could grab a hold of to
was
help
that
pull
you
them
that did this?
Yeah, that was me. Look at that.
What a story. This is so cool. I have a belief that I have a little list on my computer that's consumers in need. So when somebody calls up and says, hey, do you have this particular item, like when you asked for the trapeze, and my answer was, in 12 years that I've been here, I've never had a trapeze come through the door. That day, the guy called and said he had a thing with a trapeze, and I was like, are you kidding me, man? So it's like it has its own magic power. So I have people, just give me a call, ask. The stuff is free. We have those things donated to us from the community, so we donate it right back out. And people are always asking about cost and things like that. And we used to have a $25 deposit for chairs and stuff, but now we started to realize that it's just better to just help people and just give those chairs out. They come back to us. People do make donations, and that always goes back to, again, furthering the cause, buying more stuff.
Right, but people should slow down about making those donations, right, of equipment, because what if they need it in the future?
Yeah, absolutely. And as much as we love having those things come in, I caution people all the time. And a great example, we had a person that had hip surgery. She'd had a bad hip her whole time, got a ramp set up, got all of the durable medical equipment in place, and after the surgery was over, she got rid of it all. Now, the process to get her to a point where it was accessible was like a 4-month process, and a very stressful 4-month process for her, which left her in her home for a couple of months at a time. That is crazy. I can't imagine not being able to get out of my house.
No.
And that doesn't even talk about emergencies, right? That's scary. So now she has it in place, and when she's done with the disability, she's back to feeling good and walking. She got rid of all of that stuff. And while she called me and said, hey, we'd like to donate this stuff, the first thing I have to say is you should really consider keeping it, because an accessible home is something that you can stay in from purchase to checkout. You know what I mean? And you don't want to scramble at those later stages, and you don't want to when a surprise disability comes. I see it happen all the time. I had a guy actually who was he was a contractor. And he used to call me all the time for accessibility stuff, and he would give me a lot of, gruff, oh, why do I have to do this and why do I have to do that? A couple years later, he falls off a roof and hurts himself. And knowing all that he knew, with all the building and all the stuff he had, his home still wasn't accessible. So he was, of course, on the phone with me saying, I need this, and I need that, and I need this. And it just blows me away that even with the information, people just have this idea that it can't happen to me.
Right.
And I just want to give you a quick statistic. Between the ages of 5 and 65 of the non-institutionalized population, the people that are actually out into the community, between 5 and 65, 42% have a disability by the time they're 65 years old. And I always ask this question. If you had a 42% chance of winning the lottery, you'd play every day, wouldn't you?
Right.
Those are great odds. 42% chance that you could die at a surgery, you'd be hugging everybody and saying goodbye. But a 42% chance of having a disability by 65, and so rarely are people prepared for it. And there's a lot of things that we can do now. Just like I said, we talked earlier about Google, YouTube, those kind of things where people are giving that kind of information, like how to prepare your home. Of course, you can call us, but I always talk about self-directed education. We're in a time now that if you have a question, it can be answered within minutes of typing it into your phone or onto the computer and get that information.
Right. Life happens fast. I mean, we never know. I've had family members who've had accidents and it changes their entire life in the matter of a second.
And all of your family, too.
Right. Yeah, it changes the whole everything, the whole family.
Yeah.
Exactly. Life changes.
Yes.
And we can't go back. So you alluded a little bit earlier about there's these Medicaid waiver programs. And I always get them so confused. So there's a nursing home.
There's one is called the Nursing Home Transition and Diversion Waiver. And actually, before I even get to that, I was going to say that there's also a program called the Access to Home program.
Okay, what's that?
That's basically through the rural housing, where the grant is, I think, $1 million that's out this year. Wow. You have to apply as soon as you can because it is, again, a process, as all of them are. Basically, how that works is you would call the rural housing departments and ask for the application to the Access to Home grant. They'll send it out if you qualify, which is like 80% of the median income. If you qualify for Medicaid, you're most likely going to qualify for that, but I can't say for sure. But that's been the experience. And once you do that, they're going to send that application out. Once they get the application back, they'll schedule a time to come out and take a look at your home and figure out what kind of modifications you may need. And then there's up to $25,000 that can be used one time over the course of a 10-year period. Like you can't do it again after you've had it done for 10 years. Where you can make ramps and bathroom modifications, doors wider, removing level changes and barriers like that within the home, and kind of setting it up so somebody could have a ground level, area to live. So before anybody goes to the NHTD or TBI waiver, they have to exhaust that and any other resources that are in the community, which honestly there's not a lot when it comes to home modifications. So the second thing that we're going to tell about is the United States Department of Agriculture has something called the Section 504 grant. It can be used for home accessibility. You can find out more on USDA.gov and then Section 504.
Or we can just call you.
Or you can just call me. You do have to own your property in that one. Access to home, you do not have to own the property, so you can be a renter. And one thing I just want to share, a lot of people are very protective of their relationship with their landlords in regards to, I've had a lot of people tell me, I don't want to bother him to make this happen, or I don't want him to be mad at me to have a ramp put in because he thinks it's unsightly or whatever. And the fact is that landlords are obligated to allow those modifications. They do have the ability to suggest or to have those things taken down if you move, but they can't stop you from making the modifications. And I have yet to see anyone that gets an accessible bathroom in their apartment, the person moves out and they want it made inaccessible again. So right. That rarely happens, but that gets more accessible homes in the community. Now, after you've exhausted those, we've got Medicaid waiver applications through. For us, we would contact Southern Tier Independent Center and make the referral. And their phone number is 607-724-2111. And now, if it's the nursing home transition and diversion waiver that we're looking for folks that are at a nursing home level of care but would like to stay home. And then we can kind of, again, through service coordination and up to $20,000 a year can be applied to the NHTD waiver. So, and that may be bringing in, in-home care. It may be, therapy, adaptive technologies and devices. And
so the main requirements for that program is that they're on Medicaid,
right,
and that they would qualify for a nursing home but want to stay home. So those are the big qualifiers.
Right. Or people that want to get out of the nursing home, and make that transition.
Right.
So that's happened.
It's not a one-way street. That door goes both ways.
Right. And the traumatic brain injury waiver is similar in its application processes and all that stuff. And, of course, that's for people with traumatic brain injuries, including like strokes. And I think you would know better than I. Alzheimer's is considered a traumatic brain injury?
Well, the strokes, but
that part of it.
Alzheimer's disease is not considered. It is recognized through the VA as could be caused by head trauma.
Well, that's what I mean. There's so many different ways of interpreting
it depends,
TBI too. So.
Yeah, it depends on what agency you talk to.
Yeah, but exactly. Well, either way, the NHTD and TBI kind of work in concert. They basically do all of the same things. So it's a great resource there.
And I think a lot of people forget that just because we're in the facility, but our goal is to be in the least restrictive environment possible. And sometimes that, with some modifications in some of these programs, at home might be possible.
Yeah, not only does your home become something that you can use easier, but think about the fact that as we age, I've got grandparents and aunts and uncles that can't visit my home if it's not accessible. So I lose the opportunity for integration into the community and having people come and visit me. One of the other things, this is kind of off topic, I don't know why I just went here, but the church accessibility. You notice there is a lot of the churches are losing their parishioners because as they're aging out, they're not able to get into these churches. And one of the things that I always want to tell people is that if their church is inaccessible, contact me. I'll come out and do a free on-site assessment and determine exactly how to fix it and make it accessible so that at least they have a plan to move forward. And a lot of people, like I said, they think it's so overwhelming that it's impossible to do. Not for churches so much, but there are tax benefits too to making things accessible. And actually, so a new law just got passed that if you own your home and you make accessibility modifications to the home, you can write that off on your taxes as well.
Oh, really?
Which is really great because we put more accessible housing into the community. And that's really, right now, I can tell you that if you called me and said, I just became disabled, my home is not accessible, and I don't have any place to go, I don't have anything to tell you. I really don't, except for scour the internet, look, because there is not a lot of accessible housing out there. And if there is, it's not indicated. So we're also working to educate real estate agents on how to determine basic concepts of accessibility so they can help us identify more accessible housing so that we can then upload that information to the New York State Housing Directory, which kind of indicates where accessible housing is in the community. So,
right. That was one of the things I needed to consider as I was house hunting a few years ago. My mother is aging. She's almost nearly 80 and has some mobility issues, so it was important for me to have a bathroom on the lower level and no stairs coming in.
Yeah.
And I have a brother who has a spinal cord injury due to a motorcycle accident. He's a quadriplegic. And, he can come to my house for the holidays because
that's so great.
Right, my lower level, there's no steps, nothing. Just come right in from outside and, just moving my island out of the way, which is on wheels, move it to the side, and he has full access to
you
my
have the island on wheels? That's that's great. Yeah,
I do have an island on wheels.
Yeah.
A nice gift from my husband. But so that has accessibility to the entire downstairs. So, that was important to me to be able to have him and my mom and people to be able to come to my home. And I think that a lot of people don't think that far ahead. And I think just from being in the field, that was something that I was cautious of.
Yeah.
Hi, this is Lee Melander, host of Myth America and the Reveling Radio Hour on WIOX. I'm also the chief fomenter at Spillian, a supporter of WIOX, where Trout Tales 2016 is happening on Saturday, March 26th. Rods, reels, waders, flies, and creels for everyone, whether you're just beginning or one of the charmed circle of Catskill's fly fishermen. Trout Tales 2016, a hands-on, day-long celebration of all things trout, culminating in a smoked trout feast and, of course, fish tales. All the details at spillian.com.
WIOX is supported by Peekamoose Restaurant on Route 28 in Big Indian, featuring farmhouse cuisine prepared with locally grown ingredients and a growing wine and craft beer list. Open for dinner Thursday through Monday at 4 p.m. The Peekamoose Tap Room and Lounge serves food and drink until midnight Friday and Saturday. Reservations and information at peekamooserestaurant.com or 845-254-6500. WIOX is supported by the Catskill Mountain Foundation, where the performing arts, fine arts, crafts, movies, books, and good friends meet. Schedule of events and more information at catskillmtn.org.
You're listening to the Elder Care Advocate here on WIOX Community Radio in the Catskills at 91.3 FM and from the Catskills at WIOXradio.org. So today we're discussing shifting gears and to talk about home modification. Our guest today is Don Wyckoff from the Catskill Center for Independence. So if I need to make some home modifications and I've decided to call the Catskill Center for Independence, walk me through the process. What happens?
Okay, well, first we're going to figure out, do you need funding? If we do, then we talked already about some of the funding that's out there, so you kind of know what we have to do there. if you have the money to do it. First of all, I want to say that the on-site assessment that I come out and do it's free. I'm also a codes officer as well, so I go in when I do this report. By the time I leave, you have a comprehensive, we're talking 20 pages at least, of all the codes and requirements and things, so that the people can be informed and stay protected and know that they're building within guidelines of the American Disabilities Act and Architectural Barriers Act, so as well as New York State Code. So all the guesswork is basically taken out of how to make your home accessible. So when I go in, what I do is I literally look at from the moment I get to the home. I'm looking at where I just parked, and now I'm looking at the path of travel. And every time I do that, I always consider what is the worst form of, or not the worst, I mean probably the more difficult mobility would be in a wheelchair, right? Mm-hmm. So we have to think about mud and gravel and grass and what's that going to be like to roll over, and snow and all those kind of things. We don't usually think of that. We think, well, we've got the ramp in place, but if you can't get to it, it's not worth it. So the very first thing I'm doing is looking at parking, and then I'm looking at a path of travel that I want to have that's at least 36 inches wide. This is going to accommodate motorized scooters and wheelchairs and things like that. And then we are looking at the vertical rise that's happening at the home. I just so people get an idea of how much, or to try to do a little calculation. The way we figure out the vertical rise for ramps is we just kind of measure from the level threshold of the door to the level threshold of the ground. Once we've determined that, let's say it's 25 inches, it's 1 inch per foot, or 1 foot per inch of vertical rise. So if we've got a 25-inch rise, we need a 25-foot ramp. That's a lot of ramp. And that's why we want to look at those things now and consider how much would I really need to put away to make this accessible.
So actually, one of the ladies in my support group in Delhi, she actually was interested in today's show, so hopefully she's listening. Hi,
good.
Barbara.
Hi, Barbara.
Hi, Barbara. But, one of her concerns is okay, so her husband obviously has a dementia, and she's, at that point, okay, so my home modifications are what it's going to cost me to modify my home, and the amount of time I'm going to be at my home.
Right.
Is it worthwhile for me to make all these modifications to this home? Because who knows how long we're going to be able to be here? Would we figure out something like that?
Well, first of all, if you own that property and you make it accessible, you've just increased the overall, what it's worth. Because like I said, it's really difficult to get it. And if you have an accessible house, you're going to sell that a lot easier than an inaccessible house. There's a huge population looking for it. So,
because how costly is a ramp?
It depends. I can tell you that I put a 30-foot ramp up about 3 years ago, and it was almost $6,700 to put that up. And that was an above-ground ramp. The Minnesota ramp design is a pretty unique design. It requires no footers to go into the ground, so it also helps in that it doesn't add taxes because it's a movable object. But it's built in sections and can be removed, taken down, set up somewhere else. So that was the cheaper way of going at it. Wow, okay. There's when I'm now at ramps, I'm also thinking about AmRamp. There's some different ramp company, Mobility Works. There's a lot of different companies around that I refer people to if they need an immediate solution. Because I can tell you this, even if you have the cash and you're ready to do it, it's going to take a while to find the contractor, get the report, and get all this stuff done and actually have it put in. How many times that it happens in the wintertime, I cannot even begin to tell you how often that happens. It's usually in the winter when I'm getting all these, I slipped and fell, I can't walk anymore. Well, I can't put a ramp in. So the only way you can is like with a temporary ramp through, one of the aluminum or steel ramps, that kind of thing. But they're really expensive. So there are some insurances that'll take care of it. There are some payment plans on some of the places. AmRamp, I know they have their own funding stream, and you can apply for grants and stuff like that.
So once we've established that we can get into the home, then what things are we looking at?
We're immediately looking at things like door grabs, the handles, the door handles. Lever handles not only are great for folks with disabilities, they're great for everybody. How many times I've walked into the house and I've got 2 guitars in my hands and I use my knee to open it up because I've got a level-handed thing. People with dexterity issues and arthritis and things like that may find it difficult to make those. So that's one.
See, I'm looking at the opposite direction with my folks from dementias that we don't want them to open the door.
Right. Okay. Yes. Yeah, I understand that. Well, again, when I go out to evaluate a property and the people that are in it and what their needs are, all those things would be taken into consideration, anyways. But so we're looking for lever handled. That's really hard to say. I don't know why. Lever handled doorknobs and things like that. Door widths of at least 32 inches. The minimum clearance is 32 inches, and that doesn't mean measure your door while it's closed. It means to open that door up 90 degrees and measure from the opposite side of the door to the stop itself. And there should be 32 inches clear. 36 is preferred, obviously. Yeah, so now we're looking we've got through the door, we're looking at paths of travel. And some of the things that we look over all the time are rugs that aren't securely fastened. They cause a lot of trips. They cause a lot of falls. You wouldn't think it, but they do. And so I'm looking at those kind of things. I'm looking at dangers as I'm coming through. I'm looking at widths within hallways, turning radiuses. One of the worst things is trying to navigate a bathroom. Traditionally, bathrooms are made to be smaller, right? I mean, there's usually the smallest room in the house. But if you've got this, well, okay, not all of us, but yeah, I know. But most people have a very small bathroom, and it's difficult.
Gigantic bathrooms.
Yeah, and that's good planning, because I'll tell you, it makes a difference when you can't get in and use your own bathroom. That is unbelievable. But so I tell people now, just take 36 inches of a ruler and start to walk that through your house and start to get a visual on what that really means as far as getting around.
Is that the average width of a wheelchair? Is 36 inches?
No, that's that's our safety right there. That if we've got 36 inches, we're not gouging knuckles as we're wheeling through, or we've got room to maneuver and make a change of direction, that kind of thing. 32 at doors, but once we get in the bathroom, that's where the issues start. Now, for bathroom heights now, everything I'm going to tell you is according to the American Disabilities Act, Accessibility Guidelines, and the Architectural Barriers Act. Toilet heights, they should be between 17 to 19 inches high to the seat. It makes it easier to get on and off, and the knees are at a flex of like 75 degrees, so that it's easier to stand up and not have to.
Is that the standard?
Well,
toilet width?
17 to 19 inches is the standard toilet height.
So if I just went to Home Depot and bought a toilet, that's what it's going to be? Or?
No.
Oh, no.
Be careful.
So that's what I did.
Yeah, be careful with any product that says ADA approved. There's actually no such thing. There is no ADA building or people. It's a law, so compliant things. But a lot of people will put that on the sticker and say it's ADA approved, and then they mark up the price. And we've stopped a couple of stores from doing that and had things removed from shelves. But no, so it's not just your average toilet. So 17 to 19 inches. Again, we have a lending closet, so I immediately try to solve that solution with a couple of ways. One, we have the toilet risers that sit on top. There's a company that makes a platform that's basically a high-density plastic or material or whatever that you set the toilet on top of, which will give that additional rise without having to replace the toilet, which is about $30. So
That's cheaper than a toilet.
It is, yep. The other thing is for folks that just you need an immediate solution, I'm looking at using a portable commode that can be stationed right over top of the toilet, can be used by everybody, but it now has those grab bars right next to you. It gives a nice feeling of security, and for some folks, they may need to be, not, I don't want to say tied down, but, I have like a safety strap that would keep them there, for folks that might have dementia or something like that. And, okay, so
what about grab bars in the bathroom?
I was just going to say grab bars. Yeah, we're going to have grab bars at about 36 inches. It depends on the person, but the average is between 34 and 38. So I always say happy medium, 36 inches above the ground. There should be on the wall side and the back side of the toilet. That's, for so many reasons. There's a lot of different brands out there, but they're pretty expensive. So again, forward planning and starting to see that stuff, buying it, even though you would rather do something else with your money. These are good investments that'll make your home safer.
And what about I know that my brother-in-law was interested in those suction cup grab bars.
Yeah.
What about those? I mean,
All right.
Are they really safe?
No. I'm sure every builder out there that makes those things would love to sue for that. But no,
Sorry.
I personally, I think they're more intended to give a little offer of stability in the shower, something to grab onto, but they are no way designed to hold, a lot of weight. I have seen folks take those. I have a contractor that was doing some of those, and he was liquid nailing the suction thing to the wall. Now, you're going to ruin the wall of the shower, but it's not going anywhere. Again, I would rather have somebody put in a real grab bar. But if you really are in a pinch and you had to do something like that, you don't want to depend on just the suction cup alone. Those break free. So I'd want to liquid nail it to it and then make that.
And do you recommend that we work with somebody, like a contractor or somebody special, to put in our grab bars? Or, is this something that I can try to tackle myself as a weekend warrior?
You know what? Weekend warriors are much better off today with the internet. So how many times you can pull something up on YouTube and how to put in grab bars? And they're going to tell you those things. I would caution people with trying to put them in themselves, because if you don't know where those stud walls are, you're going to be popping holes in the acrylic of that tub or the shower. Speaking of shower, I do want to say bathtubs, everybody likes a bath, but they're incredibly dangerous. Making the transition from out of the tub to into the tub is really dangerous. The concave nature of the inside of the tub makes it so easy, and a huge amount of people not only lose their lives, but acquire those disabilities in the shower. So there's a few things that they should know. There are requirements specific to showers as far as what right down to the shower hose itself. It should have a 60-inch hose attached to it. So that way, if you were using the handheld shower, maybe if you fell or something, you have the ability to turn that hot water off right at your hands. So it prevents people from getting scalded, but it also allows them to sit down and have a shower and put the water where they need it instead of having to, stand in one spot.
I always suggest to people to turn down the temperature on the hot water heater too, especially for folks with dementia, because they're not going to be able to figure out that hot and cold. I have my water gets scalding hot at home. Yeah.
It's I see a lot of people doing the modifications to the tub where they're cutting out that little section just so it makes it a little easier for them to step over. But the price to make that modification, you might as well just buy a shower. Really, it's almost comparable.
Or even with your loan closet, they have those bath seats or the bath bench that goes inside and outside. So, I tell families about those, give them your telephone number. And then have them, because a person can sit on that bath bench and then swing their legs in. They don't actually have to step over.
Yeah, there's a difference between the bath chairs and the bath bench that you're talking about. The bath bench is awesome as far as being able to, it has two legs sitting outside of it, so you could pull a wheelchair or a walker or whatever up to it, make a side transfer, and like you said, pull your legs over. Limits and minimizes so many injuries. The only downside of that is the shower curtain isn't really going to stop all that water, so you kind of got to tuck it under your butt and just kind of hope for the best. But again, that's it's a quick solution to something, but in the long run, you'd really want to be able to make this an effortless transition, because we spend a lot of time in that bathroom, right?
Definitely.
So that's one of the first places you want to make accessible. I think for everybody, you should consider, can I make my home so that I have all the things I need on the ground floor? That should be absolutely, bar none, the main thing that you focus on, getting the accessibility. So if you had to, you could live on the ground floor. We also look at things like besides all the bathroom requirements, sinks. I always look at it as if you had the worst case scenario of mobility being a wheelchair. Would you be able to pull up to that sink? Well, most of us have cupboards on the bottom. You've got 9 inches past the end of your knees where the footrests are going to hit, so you're lucky if you can actually reach the tub or the sink. So those are things that we just don't think right now, but that sink's not going to be very usable if you can't reach, the stuff.
You're listening to the Elder Care Advocate here on WIOX Community Radio in the Catskills at 91.3 FM and from the Catskills at WIOXradio.org. Today we're discussing home modifications, and we have Don here from the Catskill Center for Independence.
Thank you.
So again, going back to the bathroom, is there other things that should be concerned about in the bathroom?
Well, the main issue is going to be the size, so turning radiuses. We want to have a 60-inch radius where we could actually turn around in a circle, because most mobility devices can make that change of direction within that. If you don't, it limits how you'll be able to get onto the toilet. And if you have a very narrow bathroom and you can only push your wheelchair straight in, you now are forced to make a stand and pivot transfer to stand up. It's even harder if you have to have an aide that's in there with you and working. It's really difficult. It's hard for the lift. They risk being dropped. So that's scary.
It is.
And, again, I could tell people this, but it really won't make sense until it's happening to you. And that's the sad thing. I really wish people would understand that, man. I mean, if you didn't do it because you thought you were going to be disabled, but you thought maybe you could help somebody that might want to come over to your house, great, let that be your cause.
Right.
Because the end result is another accessible house, and we really need that.
So what about the kitchen?
Okay, yes, that's where I was going to go next. Reach heights. Reach heights are an issue. Again, I'm working with people that are seated. I'm also working with people that are unstable. So a lot of times I'll go in and I'll look at the stoves and stuff. If they've got the burners, most of the time are in the back of the stove, requiring a person to reach over top of whatever they're cooking to turn off and adjust, which is increasing the risk for them to get a scald or a burn. Side-by-side refrigerators help, again, for folks that are, again, I'm always looking for the worst-case scenario in a wheelchair. So now we're looking at reach heights, side-by-sides, those kind of stove things. What you just talked about, the rolling island, it's a fantastic thing. It's one of the alternative accommodations that we can do because it's a lot easier to make something like that than it is to redo all of your countertops and stuff. But this you can bring right to your body. You can load it up with your spices and all the things you're going to need to cook, and then wheel that right over to the stove. And so it does make it a lot easier. But mostly what I do is I'm going to look at the folks and see how they do their day. And that allows me to really see and target in on what kind of modifications they're really going to need. A lot of times it's not just physical disabilities. Like you said, there's cognitive disabilities that are going on. I have people with visual disabilities, or they're lost their hearing. So again, we talk about adaptive technologies. There's a ton of adaptive techs that can help them to realize if a smoke alarm's going off by a visual alarm. Sound for people that aren't. Same with doorbells and phones and all that kind of stuff. We can really, cater it to them. There is expense, of course. And anytime you have any of that kind of stuff, like adaptive text like that, they cost a lot of money. So one of the tips that I give to people now is if I cannot locate something for them that they need really bad, I'll often tell them to go to Craigslist and look up, because people are trying to get rid of this stuff all the time. They're trying to make money on something that was most likely paid by insurance, and they're selling it out, right? So they really don't have a personal connection to it. So I had to think outside of the box and how I could get this stuff for them. So what I did is I had them go online and identify the product that they need, and then send me the link to that person. As a nonprofit, I then write that person and say, look, you've been sitting on this for a little while. I've got a consumer that could really use it, and we'd be happy to give you a tax receipt saying that you donated it to the center. 9 chances out of 10, they take it off Craigslist, and I'm able to get it to the person. So that's an awesome thing. But you got to be really thinking outside the box and be strategic in trying to locate these things. It's hard.
Yeah. And I don't even know, you may not even be the wrong person to ask this, so I apologize if I put you on the spot. But I know in some instances, if somebody is, for somebody who's elderly and has dementia, if they need a hospital bed, if the doctor was to write a script for it, that Medicare covers the cost. I mean, does that happen sometimes with the adaptive equipment?
It happens all the time. And actually, I get hospital beds donated just about as much as I get wheelchairs donated.
Really?
A lot.
Well, that's good to know.
It is, but the problem is that I can't store them. So if somebody can get a ride, what I do is I'll contact the person, I vet the people who call, and I see if they're a consumer and what the deal is. But once I vetted them, I've already asked permission if I can connect them, and then they connect. And once they get the product, they give me a call and say they got it, and I write the receipt and send it off to the person. Everybody's happy.
You did that for me for a lift.
Oh yeah, I love that stuff, man. That's so great.
Yeah, it just so happened I was meeting with a family in Oneonta. The lady's trying to keep her mom home through the whole progression, and she needed a lift. And you just so happened to have somebody, and they were on vacation or whatnot. But I think they finally did connect, and they got that lift.
That's such a good feeling. We have people come in all the time. They're like, "We didn't even know you were here." The thing is when you're a nonprofit center, you're doing things like giving out stuff, DMEs and all that kind of stuff, and providing the services we
DMEs?
do. Durable medical equipment.
Okay.
But we would be inundated if we could advertise. We wouldn't be able to keep up with the workflow. There are so many people in these counties, and the counties that we serve, that have disabilities that we would just be absolutely slammed. Now, it's not that we don't want to advertise, but we don't have it in the budget to advertise and then bring in so many people we can effectively work with them. So we depend on word of mouth and radio and Facebook and things like that, and just kind of target people. And
as a non-for-profit, the Alzheimer's Association is a non-for-profit. We completely understand that. So we might have had people that just tuned in or just catching the last bit of our show here. So would you be able to tell us again which areas you serve?
We serve Otsego, Delaware, Schoharie, and parts of Shenango County, mostly around Norwich area.
Okay. And your office is located where?
We're on 6104 State Highway 23 in Oneonta. We're right next to Otsego Auto Crushers, or right on the Delaware line, really close to Oneonta. Yeah.
If they are interested in these home modifications and whatnot,
they're going to give me a call, 607-432-8000.
Slow down. Let's make sure they have time to run and grab a pen, because they're running right now. They had no idea we were going to get.
They had no idea.
They had no idea, and they could be driving, and I want them to pull over. And that's why
we're going to do that advertising thing where we do it 3 times. 607-432-8000. 607-432-8000. That's 607-432-8000. It's a really easy number. Otsego, or what is it? Opportunities for Otsego is 433. So that confuses everybody. 432-8000. My name is Don, and once you talk with me, I pretty much can schedule within a few weeks to get out to the home, get that done. The on-site assessment takes about, depending on the size and how much is involved, anywhere from a half an hour to 2 hours.
Oh, wow.
But once that's done, it'll be about a week before they get the entire package back with all the requirements, pictures, drawings, and referrals, contractors.
Oh, wow. You give us a list of referrals,
I give everything.
Wow.
What I try to do is make it a no-brainer, so that you can look at this paperwork that I give you, and you'll know exactly who to call, when, where, and how. So that's really the ultimate goal.
And so you know these contractors?
I've worked with a lot of the contractors, and I don't recommend anybody that I haven't specifically worked with. There's a lot of contractors in the area. It's always a difficult thing, and I was a contractor, and I can tell you one of the sad things is you kind of get a bad name, because in the field of contracting, depending on the size of your crew, you can only take so many jobs. Well, the jobs trickle in, so you kind of have to plan accordingly, but you also got to take what you can take and try to figure it out, to be effective and make enough money. So it's really difficult. But I work with guys that I've trained in recognizing how to make accessibility happen within the guidelines. So that's another thing. I just one of the resources that I wanted to tell you about was it's something that even folks, you've got the disability, you don't know what to do, you've come to us, we've connected with resources and people and support groups and things like that, but there is an awesome program in Delhi, actually, and it's run by, it's called the BEST program. The lady's name is Mary Banks. She is a really amazing facilitator that is just incredible with the passion that she has to bring people an opportunity to change their lives. It's amazing. So folks that have absolutely, no experience in something, but you got a disability, or you've just aged out and you can't do the work you used to do, but you don't want to quit, you don't want to stop, you don't want to not be a part of your community. The BEST program is outstanding. They take 16 days, 20 hours of which is all building up computer literacy, so that folks can have that tool set to be able to access the world of knowledge that we have, but also in new interview skills, how to target and figure out jobs, how to present, just basically bringing them into the new age today. They come away with a great a binder of all these things and diplomas and things that make them applicable to jobs that they might not have had a chance to do before, or a new career that they wanted to start. So an awesome program. I just want to. It's
called the BEST program?
Yeah, it's called the BEST program, and the phone number is 746-1630, and the lady's name is Mary Banks.
Give that one more time.
Yep, 607-746-1630, and the woman's name is Mary Banks. And every time I say her name, I think of a vacation spot.
Yeah.
Doesn't that sound like you want to go vacation there, Mary Banks?
Oh, vacation sounds wonderful.
Yeah, great.
So Thank you again for being here
Yeah,
today.
yeah,
Let's
my
give out your
pleasure.
info one more time, just in case somebody wants to. You could tell them more about the BEST program or
Yeah,
any
you
of
can
the
tell
things
them all
that we
that
talked
kind of
about
stuff.
today.
Yeah. Any question, literally, if you know somebody with a disability, you're a part of a family of somebody with a disability, you're concerned, you have any questions regarding the disability field in any way, call us. 607-432-8000. You can find us on Facebook. Just type in the Catskill Center. And you can also, get us on the web at www.ccfi.us.
Fantastic. Thank you so much again.
Thanks a lot, Ann.
You've been listening to the Elder Care Advocate here on WIOX Community Radio at 91.3 FM and from the Catskills at WIOXradio.org. I'll be back in 2 weeks, and we're actually going to be discussing anticipatory grief and how to practice good self-care during the mourning process. More information about the Alzheimer's Association and Alzheimer's disease can be found at alz.org. Did you know that the Alzheimer's Association provides care consultations to those looking for guidance and support in planning for and dealing with their current and future situations at no cost? Components include an assessment of needs, assistance with planning, and problem solving. Anyone can access this service 24 hours a day, 7 days a week at 1-800-272-3900. Again, 1-800-272-3900. Or you can contact me directly here in the Leatherstocking region at 607-547-1650. Grab that pen. Here it comes one more time. 607-547-1650. Stay tuned for Swing Easy with Uncle Vito. Why isn't it playing?